member of our club previously, and recently he's been helping out with us with getting volunteers for the Funny Buddy Breakfast and things like that. Ron's been in the career development field for over 35 years. He has successfully assisted Bay Area employers and their staff through career transition processes. Ron has a BA from the University of San Francisco and a master's in adult education from San Francisco State. He's co-written 2 management books on recruitment and also the termination process. And so today he's here to talk about how individuals are transitioning into what he calls the new retirement. So help me welcome Ron Visconti.
Well, thank you all for inviting me, and thanks. And I do appreciate what you guys do in the community and around the world. And although I'm not a Rotarian anymore, I do know your worth, and thank you for what you do. I was telling Sylvia, I was at a workshop and was giving a workshop last week, and the person introducing me, before she introduced me, said, I know 3 people that have been affected by the fire in Paradise, so we all kind of know there's impact. Now, why I'm talking about the new retirement, probably a lot of you are aware of the retirement, but out of curiosity, how many consider themselves retired? So, how many are still working? Okay, so how many just like to raise their hands?
Hey, I'm retired and I'm still working. So.
Okay, well, sure. And we're going to see that that's kind of what's common, but I'll tell you why I've started getting in and giving talks about the new retirement. First of all, my background is mainly career transition and helping people through being laid off and finding new possibilities. I've worked for the Department of Navy, I've worked for defense contractors, I've worked for cities, I've worked for high-tech companies. So I've seen literally hundreds and hundreds of people being laid off. And it's tough. When you're transitioned out of a job that you've been doing for many years, it's kind of a tough process to look at and reevaluate. Where am I going? Who am I? Who's going to want me? And how do I present myself? So that was one reason. The other reason is very personal. I'm 66, and I'm kind of going into my own little new retirement. So part of it is to look at well, now it's different. People are retiring, but we have a full 30 years. In 1900, the average person lived to about 49. Now it's about 79. So we have a full bump of about 30 years. So what do we do with that 30 years? So that's the old model. And how I contend the new retirement is what do you want to do? How do you want to become meaningful and relevant? What's important to you? And by the way, there's no cookie cutter way of talking about retirement. I'll talk to different people, and some people will be working a little bit. They might be volunteering a little bit. They might be doing a little travel. Everyone is uniquely different. And you're involved in the Rotary Club, which is great. It's a purposeful activity. But I put this up because there is no one way to retire. There is no right time to retire. The retirement, you have to look at that if you want to retire. And by the way, I hate when you go to a cocktail party, if you are retired, people will ask, well, what do you do? And you have to explain, well, I would say get away from I'm retired, but rather what you're involved in. So redefining new retirement, it's being involved and being you at your very best. Just a little picture. I'm keeping my job, kids. Here's some little facts and figures about baby boomers. 10,000 people retire each day. And we have an increased life expectancy of about 30 years. 50 plus is when people start thinking of retiring. And retirement can last longer than your primary career. And I have lots of examples of that. It's not viewed as an ending, but as a transition to a new and different phase of your life. And just some other little facts, 82%. Another reason why I'm involved with this is more and more people want to work in some way. It doesn't have to be full-time work, but they want to work. Some people, so 65% want to work past 65. 52% plan to retire, plan to work in retirement. About half the people rely on Social Security, and that could be false hope there. And some 41% want to keep their skills active. That's part of being current. Expect Social Security will be their primary source of income. But a lot of people aren't prepared for retirement. And by the way, my shtick, what I'm doing, isn't the financial side. I'm not a financial guy. But I am a
Talk
guy.
to Neil about the financial side.
Yeah, you're the treasurer. But I have worked with people in career transition, and so I'm aware of the transition piece. Benefits of work. I just put up some benefits of work. Sure, it's financial, but it also gives our time, meaning to our time, a sense of purpose, status and affiliation. How many times do we affiliate ourselves? I'm an accountant, I'm a lawyer, I'm this or that. And socialization. Boy, when I saw my dad retire, he was very, very popular, and he went from a big network to a very small network, and that sometimes happens. And I like to talk to people about the transition process because it's not always an easy one, and most people, I even get people that get very depressed right after the role because, hey, what's the point? I think it was the head of GE when he turned 65 killed himself because he said, what's the point of me living? And Dr. Ra, by the way, did a study on life transitions and being sick, and he did this in the 60s, and you can look it up, R-A-H-E, that if you have lots of stressors in your life, you're more prone to get sick, medically sick. So I'm helping people kind of look at the preparation part, the transition, and what it's going to look like. The paradox of time. I get a lot of people that say, here they go from having their time structured for them to having open time. And what I found, and I've done a little study on this, that usually people after the first part of their retirement, they enjoy not having anywhere to go and having full, I could sleep till 11 o'clock, or I don't have to go anywhere. But after the magic time comes around, after 10 months to even 2 years, that people start settling in, well, how do I replace this? What's it going to be like? So, and what do I do with my time? So there is a paradox of time. I'm enjoying talking to people about retirement because it brings up a lot of meaty, interesting questions. Do you want to work? Are you going to volunteer? How are you going to physically and mentally be healthy? Do you have enough money to retire? And by the way, I talk to at least 1 to 5 people every week that are probably leaving the area, And as a matter of fact, every week I see people, hey, I'm going to retire in Boise. I've gotten 5 people in Boise. And it also creates other issues, interactive issues, relationships change. What do you do for fun? By the way, some people say, hey, I'm going to golf all day. Well, if golfing is what you do all day, then that's your work. That's become your work. You need something to replace that. Where will I live? Most importantly, not just being busy, but purposeful. What gives me purpose? And what do I need to do to develop? Just because you're retired, if you are retired, you're going to be growing in different ways. And by the way, these are the 6 interactive areas. There's one area I didn't put up there, not to scare anyone, and it's spiritual. And I think that runs throughout. but your career, your health, finances, family, leisure, and social, personal development, what that's all about. And I put spiritual here as well. And then I just put for fun some people that I know that are models for me in retirement. I'll talk about Frank. He's a widow, and this guy is amazing. He looks like about 50, 55. He's 92. He still works 1 day a week as a consultant. He's on 3 boards. He travels. He's an avid walker, but he's just involved in everything. And when you get him, you get energy. He's kind of my model. Rita, I was on a board with, and believe me, I couldn't hold a candle to Rita. She knew everyone. She was the spark for every nonprofit that she was part of. She was a former teacher and social worker. Doug is a friend of ours in Portland. He's a former priest, and he's a retired CPA. He still does a little CPA work. He does some work for his church as a CPA. He's a volunteer in 3 or 4 groups. He heads a couple of civil rights groups in Portland. He's going to have another challenge. His wife just has the onset of Alzheimer's. So that's
a priest?
He formerly, a long time ago. He was a priest for 10 years, and then he left and got married, of course. Well, not of course, but you know, I can only say that because one of the few popes, Pope Gregory Visconti, was one of the popes that was married. So I have that last name of a pope that was married at one time. So,
Times have changed. Times have changed.
Yes. And Elizabeth, I'm putting her up, that was my former mother-in-law, who's passed away, but throughout her life she was a writer. And that kind of followed her around. And by the way, they've done little studies. Some of us want to shed new, we want to be new, and some of us continue with what we know, and we continue doing what I know. But her writing was always her passion and her work, and she used to, a long time ago, write for